Hey, what's up producers? Joshua Casper here with another video tutorial. This was going to be a little bit different than usual because we're just going to be talking about some core concepts of mixing for the tail end of mixing month. Not all of these need plugins either. I know that might be strange as we're a plugin boutique and we sell plugins, but you know, to get good mixes, sometimes you just got to do some simple tricks that you can do in your house for free or in your studio, wherever you are. They will just help you get better mixes. So my goal here is to break those down. Some of them are technical, but some of them are more kind of conceptual, if you will. What I wanna do is give you some broader strokes to hopefully give you better mixes. So let's go ahead and jump in. Now, before we jump into sort of the list, there's one really important thing here, and that is you need to trust your ears. This is what counts. Meters are gonna help when you need to get super detailed, if you're gonna be broadcasting, or if you're gonna be putting stuff on radio or putting it on vinyl. Like, these sort of technical aspects will come into play later on, but in the beginning, if you're just trying to get music that sounds good, use your ears. I used to mix on really cheap headphones, and I always got compliments on my mixes. In fact, people used to pay me to mix their tracks with those really just cheap earbuds. The way I was able to accomplish that was knowing the sound. So I would listen to tons of music in those earbuds, and then when I was mixing my track or someone else's, knowing what a professionally mixed or mastered track sounded like, I was able to emulate that just by remembering how it should sound. Really, you can do it on anything. Just know kind of the profile of what a good track should sound like. And that will lead me into one of the first key concepts here. And that is not only just knowing it internally like I did, but having something like an A/B or an EQ match. These features are incredibly important and are available in a number of plugins. I believe there's a plugin that just allows you to A, B, C, D tracks, and it just allows you to flip through them. If you have like a DAW, you'll have to like alt-click solo on each track to be able to hear one and flip through them quite easily, or seamlessly rather. And that can be, you know, quite cumbersome. So there are plugins that allow you to do that. And with the EQ match feature, something like a Fab Filter has it. I believe MAutoDynamic EQ from Melda has it. Tons of EQ plugins. There's Smart EQ from Sonable. All of these plugins allow you to, it will listen to a piece of audio and then get the EQ curve or profile of that audio. Say it's a track that you like, that you think your music is similar to, and you want to kind of emulate the profile. And it will automatically apply that to a varying degree that you'll have control over to your mixes. So this could be seen as more of a mastering step, but in my opinion, it's in the mixing stage that this needs to happen. In reality, the master should have to do very little to your audio. And this actually brings me to my next core concept, and that is trash in, trash out. So this works on the sample level, on the library and the synth level, and then on your mixing in your mastering. So if I give my master to a mastering engineer and it's bad, the mastering engineer isn't gonna be able to transform it, isn't gonna be able to paint it gold. They're gonna make it sound a little bit better, but if it sounds bad to begin with, it's not gonna sound platinum after a mastering engineer gets their hands on it. So just know that when you're in your mixing stage. But this also goes down to a more fundamental level when you're choosing your drum kit, for example. The compliments that I've gotten throughout my career, and I've been making music for 15 plus years, and I've been making videos for you for about 8 now. One of the best and most frequent comments I get is like, how do your drums sound so good? Or how do your strings sound so good? And that is because I've spent the money or spent the time designing a sound that it sounds great out of the gate. So if you buy a really crunchy drum kit, for example, you're not gonna be able to make it clean again. There's just no way that's gonna happen. So what I like to do is get some really high quality strings, for example, that sound exactly like I'm in a hall listening to them, with a close microphone because I don't want that room reverb sometimes. And then if I want to dirty it, I dirty it myself using any of the number of VSTs out there like RC20, Lifeline, Expanse, and so on. It's the same thing with samples. I don't get really distorted samples very often because you can't remove distortion really. You can add it, but you can't take it away. It's like putting salt into a dish. You got to do it slowly because you can't take the salt out once it's in there, if that makes sense. So I've been giving you sort of conceptual ideas here, but another more technical one is sidechaining or ducking your reverbs and your delays, especially on reverbs and delays for vocals or your leads. You want your lead to be front and center most times. Everything is subjective, I get it, but generally you want a vocal to be pristine. But you also like a lush reverb with the vocal. So some reverbs, including Lifeline, Expanse, and some others have an Autoduck feature on a reverb. So we'll automatically, just in the plugin, if the dry signal is coming in, we'll push the reverb tail down and out of the way to let that breathe. And you can, again, you can put it up really high or have it be subtle, but you can also do this on something like a little plate that doesn't have internal ducking. You can do it in a return track. So what you would do is, instead of putting a reverb on your vocal channel or group, you put it on a return track and then you send your vocal there. So your reverb will be 100% wet. And then after your reverb, you can then do sidechaining, either with something like Volume Shaper from Cable Guys or something along those lines, or you can just sidechain it with a compressor, or even if you want to get super technical, depending on how surgical you want to be, you can do multi-band sidechaining or multi-band even EQing, dynamic EQing that is, to remove that reverb tail when the original signal happens. So it's just like sidechaining a bass, but instead of bass and drums and the relationship there, you're doing it with the vocal and the reverb for that vocal, or any other reverb, to be honest. It depends on how muddy your track is. And just a side note, use it sparingly. Reverb to beginners, reverbs and delays just sound incredible because they are, but a very common beginner mistake is to put too much on your track, which leads to mud and too much of a busy signal, and it's just something to avoid and use sparingly, but use with purpose when you do decide to use it. And the next one is something that I have heard a lot out here on YouTube, but I just want to hit home here, is you want to mix quietly. Ear fatigue is a real thing. And if you listen to loud music too much, you can really damage it and get tinnitus where you'll have that ringing. But ear fatigue, so the way you hear is actually little hairs in your ear and bones shift inside of your ear canal. And all of that can get fatigued by having too much vibration, by getting too much loud signal in there. So when you're mixing, you don't want to have really loud sound. This is another common thing. When it's louder, it sounds better. That's just the way it is. So you want to make sure your mix sounds great at a low level. The best thing to do is get it in a really good place, or maybe every now and then turning it up to see what it sounds like. But the bulk of your precision mixing will probably be done at a very low volume. Obviously, you need to be able to hear everything, but don't have it too loud where you can actually tire your ears out, if that makes sense. And on the same theme of that, you don't want to be mixing for hours on end for the same reason. You got to keep your ears healthy so you can trust your ears so you can get better mixes, period. And the final kind of core concept I have here is put it away. I cannot stress this enough. This is the one that will make the most difference for you. Put it away. The longer you can put it away and come back to it, the better. I know that you have been working on it and you want to get it out, and you just got that fire and you're like, oh, this is a banger. I need to get it released. I need to get it into people's phones, I guess, laptops, whatever it is nowadays. I need to put it on Beatport. But put it away. Seriously, think about how many old tracks you go back to and you're like, oh, I can't even believe I released that. Or, oh, if it's a project that you just found and you're like, how have I not still been working on this? It's absolutely incredible. With those general concepts for projects, it's the same thing with your mix. Put it away. I like to put it away for a week. Just don't even listen to a bounce, a mix down, a version, nothing. Put it away and forget about it for a week. Come back and see what your ears, again, trust the ears, see what they say to you about the mix. Okay, this is assuming that your project is already done and it's finalized, and then you're just focusing on balance, tonal balance, as it were. assuming that's the case, you come back and you can just be like, oh, well, that bass is just too much in my face, or it's a little bit too muddy in the mid to low end. Whatever it is, you'll hear it much more with a fresh pair of ears, if that makes sense. Oh, and one final kind of bonus tip, I suppose, is if you're doing a lot in your mixing, I tend to mix along the way. So when it's actually mixing time, there's very little for me to do. If you can do that, it's a great way to approach it. Just if it's too muddy, fix it before you move on. You can also just get kind of, what do you call it? Like married to a bad sound because you've just been listening to it too much. So that's why I like to keep things clean right along the way. But save instances or versions of your mix. And then just like we talked about with the A-Bing of your track with other professionally mixed and mastered tracks, you can then A-B your track with other versions of your track. So mix 1, mix 2, mix 3, and so on. And then you'll be able to, again, if you put it away and come back to it, listen to it with fresh ears, be able to really clearly identify which one is the best and understand why, and then use that information for your next project. I know that's a lot of just talking, not a lot of showing. I will leave a playlist to all of the mixing video tutorials that I've done over the years. It is a lot. Mixing is an art form. It is a college level, course that you have to take for 5 years to get it right. It is not something to take lightly, but if you get in and apply yourself and watch all of the free content out there and use some of these concepts that I've highlighted in this video, you will be making better masters, or mixes rather, in the near future. Anyway, I'm Joshua Casper. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.